everyone, and welcome back to another Redstone showcase. This time I'm going to be showcasing my new chessboard 4.0, which I sneak peeked like 3 months ago. Sorry for being so late, but this one is a massive improvement over my third chessboard. So I hope you enjoy as I get to explaining how it works. Just like my other chessboards, this one is controlled remotely with a grid of buttons. That way you don't have to walk around the entire chessboard to move pieces around. And the display itself is vertical. So let's say we wanted to move that pawn on e2 up 2 squares. Then we would select the square it's on, which is e2. You can wait for the lights to turn on, and then you select the destination square. Then the pawn will disappear, and a pawn will reappear on e4, and it'll correct the colors because of the way the light and dark squares are structured. And then a new feature is that it will state the algebraic notation along with the move number on the top row. Since this chessboard, like my other chessboards, does not enforce the rules of chess, there are some things you can't notate, like checks or checkmate, or for example, if two of the same type of piece can move to a square, it won't be able to tell which one it is. It'll just say that one of them moved there. But still, this is a huge feature that was really difficult to implement, but I think it's really cool. Something else this chessboard has over my previous chessboards is the ability to play en passant. So, for example, in this position, if we just play a random move for black, like this move, and wait for that to register. So basically, after I move this pawn, with my previous chessboards, you couldn't really play en passant because once you moved your pawn to that square, there would still be a pawn left on the board because you would never have captured it. So you would have to remove that manually, and that is kind of annoying and defeats the purpose of the chessboard. So now I've implemented something that allows you to capture en passant. So if we capture this pawn that has just moved 2 squares, it will move the pawn to f6 and remove the pawn below it. And as you can see, it does recognize that that was a capture. E takes f6. So this is really cool. The way it works is that if it sees that a pawn has moved to an empty square on the 6th rank, or inversely on the 3rd rank if you're playing as black, then it will remove the pawn below it. So yeah, that's one thing that makes this chessboard a lot better than my previous chessboards. Alright, so in order to demonstrate castling, I have set up the position in front of you, and it is white to move. So with my previous chessboard, you could castle, that was a feature, but this chessboard has the same feature. So if you move the king from e1 to g1, then it will automatically move the rook from h1 to f1, and the same thing works on the other side if you wanted to queenside castle, and the notation will work properly. So it notates it as O-O, which is how you notate castling in chess, and if you castle queenside, then it would say O-O-O. Now in order to demonstrate pawn promotion, I set up this position where it's white to move, and white has a pawn on a7 that can capture the knight on b8. So in order to promote, I've set up this UI right here where you can choose which piece you want to promote to. So the way it works is that once you make your move with your pawn, this UI will start blinking, and while it's blinking, none of these buttons will work, which means you have to select a piece to promote to. So let's say I just want to promote to a rook, just for demonstration. It will now place a rook on the square where the pawn was, and the notation will be correct. A takes b8 equals rook. So that is how pawn promotion works on this chessboard. So now that I've gone through all the features of this machine, I think it's time to send you on a little bit of a tour through all the inner workings of the machine. And we'll start with the display. So you'll notice that instead of using redstone lamps, this time I've used dispensers with powdered snow, which I think just makes it a little bit more visually appealing. And I did not get this idea from myself. It was from another YouTuber by the name of Green Jab, whose YouTube channel will be in the description, who also made a chessboard recently. It was flat, but it used powdered snow, which I thought was pretty clever. But anyway, the way this prints a piece onto a square is with the use of these piston I guess memory arrays. I'm not really sure what to call these. Basically, what this allows me to do is encode the pixels that I want to be activated with every piece. So as you can see, if this module right here gets activated, it will push across all of these iron bars, or not iron bars, iron trapdoors, and they'll get immediately pushed back, and all of the observers here will be activated because of that, but none of the walls here will be, obviously. So that means it'll only activate the pixels that have an observer in this spot. But if a signal comes from behind and wants to make it through here, it still can, because when the iron trapdoor flips up, it'll create a solid surface for this wall to connect to, and this observer will send a signal through. So this allows you to basically send any combination of pixels you want through, as long as you have like a way to activate them. So there are 6 modules here, one for each type of piece, which is actually better than my previous design, because my previous design had 12 different modules, because it took into account the white and black pieces. But this time it will just activate the entire array of pixels to change the color, which allows this to be a little bit more compact. So if you're a little bit more experienced with Redstone, you may notice that there's something a little bit problematic about setting up a vertical display of dispensers, and that is because of something called quasi-connectivity. So if I were to activate this dispenser right here, it would actually activate both of the dispensers, because if you activate a block and the block below it is a dispenser or a dropper or a piston or sticky piston, and it gets updated, then it will activate even though there's no powered block next to it, which is something that's both very annoying and also very useful in different cases. In order to fix this problem, I actually had to sort of change the displays, or actually get the pixel arrays for some of the pieces. So actually, this is the pixel array for a queen, and as you can tell, this looks nothing like a queen, but each of these rows will be activated at a different time, and it will be set to activate both the dispenser on that row and the one below it. So the green ones will activate first, and I'll just sort of demonstrate what that would look like. It actually look like this, but I'd still want the red wool to be there so that you know it's the last row. Then the yellow ones will activate. So for this one, it'll activate this one and deactivate the one below it. And it'll look something like this. And up here too. And then the red ones will activate. This one will deactivate and deactivate this. This one will deactivate and deactivate this. And this one will activate both of these. And there's your queen. Actually, this one also activates. But there's your queen. So even though it looks nothing like the queen, it still makes a queen because every pixel also activates the one below it. So that's sort of how I get by the problem of 2 pixels activating at once. So the last important thing I want to talk about in regards to how the machine works is the use of instant comparators. So this is a technique I learned very recently before making this machine, about how you can activate comparators instantly all at the same time. And that's huge because it means I can send information about a piece type from one square to any other square instantaneously. And I can do this in a pretty confined amount of space. So that is a huge improvement over the last chessboard, and it's part of the reason I even wanted to start this project, is because I know I could improve my earlier designs. So basically the way it works is before a comparator is activated, an observer will fire a signal into the comparator. Now, since the observer is a 1-tick pulse, the comparator won't pick it up, but it will serve as the first tick of the 2-tick timer that the comparator needs to activate, which means when the actual signal goes through, given the right timings, all of the comparators will activate at the same time. And that's huge, and it's accounting for a lot of the speed increase from the last chessboard to this chessboard, because the last one was really slow. This one is incredibly fast in comparison. So I think that's going to wrap up my explanation for this video. I could have gone into more detail about how this all works, but I sort of want to veer away from that because my videos can be pretty long. I think I'm just going to add a world download to the description of this video, and you can try it out if you want. It is not 100% foolproof, so like I said before, you do have to wait for the light to turn on to press your second button. And you can't play another move until the display updates. But as long as you follow those rules, the machine won't break. It's very reliable. And if you want to play it against your friends again, there's a link in the description to a world download, or at least there will be soon after I upload this video. I hope you enjoyed this explanation or showcase, and I'll see you in the next one.